Yeah, I have started. And we are live now. Great.
Okay. Hello and welcome for this edition of LinkedIn Live CIO Talk Show by dynamicCIO. My name is Rahul Neel. I'm the editor and co-founder of Greyhead Media, dynamicCIO. Uh, you are all aware that we bring CIOs, CISOs, technology experts, and community influencers on this platform to discuss issues that are real, that are challenging, and that actually confront the industry at large, and try to seek solutions and suggestions both from the people who matter. Today we have two very special guests from the automotive industry in India, whom I will introduce in a short while from now. But before that, I would like to give you a very short background so that you know why is this discussion relevant and vital at this point in time. Um, so with the onset of COVID-19 and slightly before, it was estimated that the industry, I mean, automotive industry is pushed back at least 4 to 5 years. As per the data from the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturer, which is SIAM, sales of almost each of the vehicle segments, including commercial vehicles, passenger vehicles, and luxury cars, clocked in the fiscal year 2020, which is the same level as the fiscal year 2016. And the automotive industry stalwarts can correct me when they speak if I'm quoting it wrong. The outbreak of COVID has also created a new set of challenges on the top floor for countries' automotive OEMs. It has slowed down demand and impacted labor availability, aside from flagging health and safety concerns. There will be it is estimated that there will be a prolonged truncation of consumer demand as India comes out of the various lockdown scenarios, and also a pretty weak and fragile economy as suggested by indicators. It may have already resulted in a widespread loss of consumer confidence, significantly impacting the revenue and profitability of the automotive companies. Automotive companies may be forced to divert capital to shore up continuing their operations, the starving R&D funds for advanced technology initiatives and other discretionary projects. Um, so there is a dilemma, but amidst that dilemma, there is also a ray of hope with which almost all automobile companies are trying to resurrect. In that case, what is that a CIO is seeing inside the war rooms or the boardrooms? A very important question. How are the companies going to face the new reality? Another very important question. The third and last important question is, will technology be the real savior or differentiator? So if we go through a few reports that have come out recently, IBM brought out a report very recently, which is titled "Automotive 2030: Racing Towards a Digital Future." Half of the surveyed automotive executives said that they, they 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 will succeed or even survive in the next 10 years only if they reinvent their organizations um, with technologies that matter, and which is also supported by data. Uh, even another report titled EY Digital Manufacturing India Survey 2019, it noted that digital may be an ideal option to enable manufacturing and supply chains to build strength and adapt to the new normal. So pardon me. So there are various things that we will discuss today. I will not get into the nitty-gritties of the data that I have collected. I'll straight away jump into introducing two of my guests. We have with me Hilal Khan, an old friend and a very, very old industry veteran. not in terms of age, but in terms of experience, of course. He's a vice president and operating head for IT at the Honda Cars India. In past, he has also worked for Daewoo and DCM Toyota. I also have with me Chulanga Perera. Chulanga is the CIO of Daimler India Commercial Vehicles, and Chulanga has actually been across the world. So he has worked for Mercedes-Benz in Germany. He has worked for Mitsubishi in Japan, Nestle in the US, Citigroup in the Sri Lanka, and many more other organizations. So welcome both you gentlemen, Hilal and Chulanga. How are you doing?
So, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much, Rahul, for this wonderful opportunity. To meet and greet to you, to Chulanga, and rest of the people. I'm sure that we are going to have a very interesting discussion today. So, looking forward.
Likewise. Thanks, Rahul. On a lovely Friday afternoon, it's a pleasure to be a part of this discussion and looking forward to how the session will progress.
Great. I'm equally eager and anxious to talk to both of you and see where the industry stands today, and also know from you. I'm sorry. That what is the industry doing? As a representative of the industry, how do you see the industry trying to resurrect and beat the boredom and beat the lower expectations that have already been set. So starting with you, Hilal, there is certainly an impact of the crisis that we have seen that followed the lockdown and the slowdown of auto sector, which was already facing certain critical challenges. Now, since the lockdown is opening in phases, I'm sure the workforce, the shop floor is still not buzzing with workers as it used to be prior to March. How do you see things transforming? How do you see things changing? How do you see the manufacturing changing? How do you see the entire business model changing? With this new normal that has set in.
So, Rahul, let me talk about this subject in pre-COVID era and post-COVID era. As you have rightly shared in the beginning itself, that the auto industry was going through really tough time, and it's not only on account of shared mobility or cafe norms or autonomous car, connected car, BS6. There were so many things that were disrupting the auto industry. As you are aware that it's a capital intensive industry, and you really need to continuously pump in a lot of money. The challenge on ground is really increasing. The customer behavior is changing. The workforce management is also changing. So that was the situation before the COVID. Last 1.5 year was really quite difficult for the auto industry. Now, prior to COVID, everybody has started realizing that we need to really focus on digital, and that's going to be the key differentiator. But in terms of taking the digital subject to the boardroom, that was a challenging task, because converting the return on investment and talking about measurable numerical number, that was always a challenge, despite you being 100% convinced about the subject. Now, what has really happened that after COVID, I'll be talking about the workforce that you have touched upon. I'll be talking about the supply chain, the ecosystem, the suppliers, community, the dealer community. That all was, a big challenge. So, in terms of the workforce, the workers who are actually really working on the assembly line, uh, if you see the composition of that manpower, most of these people are either from around the nearby places or from the far away places, because we have different kind of profile working with us. And during the lockdown, since we as office people were continuing to work because of the technology and the virtual meetings, etc., uh, the manufacturing of car require physical intervention, and
Absolutely.
hence the plant was shut down, and those people moved to their different towns, home estates, etc. Now different states, they were having different norms of safety. uh, so having these people back again was a challenge. Having these people back again in the right health, that was also a bigger challenge. And then
Absolutely.
ensuring that we have to take care of all our manpower, that was the biggest challenge. So when the lockdown was kind of opened, uh, we started facing another issue. The issue is that you have your supplier cluster primarily around your location, but then there are suppliers who are beyond your specific state, and you have dealers. Now you have to take care of that supply chain, and then there was a China impact. So the availability beyond the manpower, the availability of the material as such was a big problem. The movement of the material as such was a big problem, and the finished good inventory, you have to sell it through your dealers. The dealers are there in different states. One state is open, another state is closed, and within one state, one city is open, another city is closed. So you have to talk about managing your volumes, managing your supply chain, both in terms of your inbound logistics and outbound logistics, including your manpower. That was the challenge that was there behind the scene. On the front end, you have to take care of changing customer behavior and the customer need, because he is having certain kind of fear in his mind, his behavior is totally changing. So it was a battle that was kind of 360-degree battle on all fronts, all possible front. But there is a silver lining. The silver lining is that it has or I can say that it is a blessing in disguise, because some of the initiative for which we were struggling, it has created a trigger, and that trigger is by hard way, not by soft way. And now people are learning more and more, and investing more and more in digital initiatives, and things are changing. The economy is picking up, the market has started opening up, the supply chain is now kind of a lot more normal, so things are picking up, and I see that it is going, while it has created a dent, it is definitely going to serve a big deal for the economy to bounce back, for the auto industry to bounce back.
Thank you. What I gathered from what you said, Hilal, is actually very profound. Adoption of technology, technology assisted manufacturing, all of these things come a little later, but you know a lot of basics were shaken, as you said, that the workers went back. There is a need for a worker to physically available to manufacture a vehicle, and that was completely shut down. I mean, that was not a reality at all, that was not a possibility at all. So the automotive industry as such has to you know not only struggle in terms of bringing those workers to the location, but also try to cater to the entire ecosystem, which included suppliers, which included partners, which included dealers, which included the employees, the shop floor workers. So brilliant. I think it's a good start to the discussion. I will rephrase this question and put the same thing to get a different perspective from Chulanga. So Chulanga, you heard what Hilal said. Impact of crisis has actually impacted different companies very differently. However, the aim of every organization is to bounce back as soon as one can. So would you like to explain what kind of impact did you see in general? uh, if you want to be specific, you can be, but what kind of impact did you see in general, and how post lockdown measures are going to help, uh, gradually, instantly, to instill the confidence in the all the stakeholders, whether it is a buyer or it's a supplier or it's an employee.
So I think Rahul, Hilal very nicely summed it up, right? So let me start off with the last question that you asked, or the last portion of your question, which was about the confidence. I think in India, we should be very, very confident. And I'll explain why. Before COVID, we had the BS4 to BS6 change, right? And if you look at India, how we adopted the auto sector, or how the regulations came, this goes to show that we are rapidly progressing as a country, right? And in order to keep up with this progression, companies have to adopt, be agile, be lean, and be very, very quick to change. If you look at how, for example, Euro 4 to Euro 6, or even other norms were implemented in Europe, in Japan and other countries, it took a lot longer, 7 to 8 years in between. In India, barely 2.5 years, right? So that just goes to show how quickly we have to adopt and change. And this is only the tip of the iceberg, right? As the years come, you will see we will have to rapidly, continuously change. So for Daimler, India Commercial Vehicles, we understood this and we said, look, let's build the organization in such a way that we do not face shocks when we see these kind of changes, that we anticipate them and we face them in the best possible way known to us. And because of that, at least for us, adopting was not very difficult. However, when you look at moving an organization, it's not one person, or it's not just the boardroom. You have to bring the entire organization with you, and sometimes the industry and the country and the people have to move along as well. Why I say that is, we can roll out changes or we can put out products into the market, but the products have to be accepted, and people need to be tech savvy enough to also accept and embrace these products. And why I say that is, now if you look at a product, it's very software driven. 10 years ago, it was predominantly hardware, right? Now, if you look at our cars, they're all connected. You look at our trucks, the buses, everything is connected. You have a lot of embedded systems now integrated into the vehicle, which means that even the users have to sometimes become tech savvy. Yeah. And we also have to understand the users are expecting more and more out of these products. So why I said this is, the world we used to live in before, and if we were positioning our organizations without thinking about the future, you would have seen that those organizations will always take a back step. Yeah? And it's up to us as leaders to somehow anticipate these changes and embrace it. So now when you look at COVID has come, and we at least anticipate that the Indian economy will recover sometime towards 23 back to the normal levels, right? If you look at also how the outside world is looking at India, if you look at the FDIs, the foreign direct investments, I saw statistics that said in the past 7 months, even with COVID, about $17 billion have been invested in India, right? Which means the confidence in the country, right, as well as what this country has to offer is blossoming outside as well. Now, 10 billion euros came from Google, but however, still 7 billion from tech giants have been invested in India, right? So we now have to think of, if the outside world believes in us, why can't we believe in ourselves? Why can't we reskill our employees, right? Why can't we utilize the talent that India has and make in India for the world? Yeah, and that's something we have to really, really push and embrace. And for us, we of course, for Daimler, we do this on a larger scale, but also we want to take care of the market here in India. And that's how we've embraced it. And when you look at post-COVID, I think what we will have to do is, everybody talks about digital and data. We also have to look at the security aspect of it, because with ever-growing data and digitalization, one of the areas that most people don't realize is how expensive this can be as well, and how dangerous it can be. Living in a world that's driven by artificial intelligence, you will look at a situation where robots are doing a lot of the work, and we are in return are making robots, right? That's a very famous saying, right? That's how the world will look maybe in 2040, 2045. Yeah. So do we get there? I do not know. And I don't know if anyone can answer that, but the way progression is happening is we need to anticipate these changes will come. We need to be adopted. We need to consider all the risk factors when it comes to data security, privacy, and also the added run cost that we will have to look at when implementing or using digital technologies, right? So I think if we embrace ourselves to understand this, it becomes a lot easier for organizations to navigate through any path that comes.
Okay, interesting, points that you brought up, Chulanga, and somewhere in the middle, you said certain things that industry has to be very agile. Industry has to be very responsive. Um, Automotive industry, as per my limited understanding, has already been very responsive to its customers. Okay, what I will do is, another important fact that you brought up was that the kind of embedded systems that have started going into an automobile, into a final product, um, is driving companies to become more software centric than being hardware driven or hardware centric, which is a very big fact, and one must keep that in mind going into the future. We are still not talking about an entirely autonomous world. We're still talking about software predominant automotive going to a quasi autonomous and to a fully autonomous. It is a gradual process. It will take some time. So I will break this monotony of asking questions, cliched questions. Very interesting observation has come from Suhas Maskar. Suhas, you may know, Hilal may know. He had a long history in Mahindra and Mahindra. Right now he doesn't work. He took a retirement from there. He has put up a very interesting comment, and I would like both of you to take this comment and respond, um, in your own way. So he says that automotive industry is a very complex orchestration of customer aspirations, organizational capabilities, technology adoption, vendor ecosystem, dealer community, and overall supply chain coordination. We all talked about facing the VUCA world, but in reality, no one was ready for a pandemic like COVID-19 and the massive lockdowns that it will bring upon us. However, having worked in the industry for over 2 decades, that's he's talking about himself, I can confidently say that the industry is resilient enough to spring back and will evolve new innovations to excel once again. So, my question was also related to it. Hilal, if you remember, we touched upon while our preparation, while we were going into the preparation for this LinkedIn live chat, we touched upon these factors. You talked about this word called stakeholders, in which you mentioned partners, you mentioned dealers, you mentioned insurance companies, you mentioned suppliers. So how is this whole chain getting changed? Radically changed, disrupted by the after events of COVID.
So first of all, let me thank Suhas for bringing this very pertinent subject. He is an industry veteran, so he doesn't need really any introduction, and he summed up really very well. See, um I just want to share a very interesting example when we talk about the auto industry, and when we talk about the contribution of auto industry to the GDP of the country. We used to at times calculate like this. Okay, say for example, we are having 10,000 employees. Each employee must be having approximately 5 in the family. So 10,000 into 5 becomes 50,000. We are having 400 dealers. Each dealer must be having 100 employees at least. 100 into 400 into 5. Then we are having approximately 500 suppliers. Each supplier must be having around 200 manpower. 500 into 200 into 5. Then we are having bankers. Then we are having the finance company. We have the registration authority. Now you can imagine
The ecosystem.
the ecosystem. That all is ecosystem. And if today I say that the OEM is driving that ecosystem, that's a big misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
We all are stakeholders, and Suhas said it so rightly. I am just amazed by his words. The customer is having his own expectation. With the time he has graduated, his industry understanding and his technology understanding is changing. He's much more demanding. Then you have lot many, new players in the market. I would not call them new. There are lot many players in the market today to keep you on the toes in terms of competition, in terms of offering the cutting edge technology at the best possible prices. You are having, plenty of suppliers, local supplier, multinational suppliers. You are having individual dealers, you are having group of dealers, you are having dealers who are graduating from two-wheeler to the four-wheeler dealership. So everything is changing. And then the normal evolution of the country, the digital evolution, the skill evolution, everything is changing. And that has changed the auto industry altogether. So when I talked about BS6 or connected car or the autonomous car, I think that is a combination or the result of all these forces put together.
Absolutely.
But when we talk about how we are dealing with it, we really need to understand. I'm sorry for slightly different understanding. We talked about digital India or make in India or skill India. All those India put together as a concept, very good. We must really appreciate that there is a government, there is a person who is constantly talking about it. So the intention is good, but how we are really doing it on the ground, that really need to be assessed. I'm giving you one very interesting example, and I'm not quoting my industry. Sorry, I'm not quoting my company.
Yes.
So for us to keep the car competitive, you need to have your direct cost and indirect cost in place, and majority of your cost constitution is the material that's going for the production of the car, for the manufacturing of the car. Now here comes the debate of local versus imported. We hear these terms: how much localization you are having in car X, how much localization you are having in car Y. Now, at times we have realized that despite we having 80% localization, eventually the localization may be just 40%, because the suppliers who are locally assembling to you, they must be importing 90% of their component from outside India. So when we talk about gross versus net localization, the things are different. So when I say that we are trying to keep the pace with the market, with the dynamics of the market, with the post COVID effect, we have to understand that before that what we were doing, and were we really ready to deal with all these challenges. So I think things on grounds are improving in all the possible dimension, but as an industry we have to still go a long way. And that's why I said in the beginning itself that I take this COVID as a golden opportunity, blessing in disguise, because it is pushing us to the wall in all possible dimension, be it dealing with our suppliers, be it dealing with our dealers, dealing with our customers, dealing with total ecosystem is completely changed. And this is triggering a new debate every day. There is a new discussion that is happening every day in the organization, and we are at times we are ahead of the market, ahead of the thinking, and proposing few things at our own. At times we are reacting to the situation. So that both is happening, and very good handshake is happening. So I am very confident that things are going to definitely improve, and the auto industry will find its lost sheen within next couple of months. I am not into prediction and astrology, but what I can see on ground, things are definitely changing, and we are going to see definitely a very bright future.
No, so I'm loving this discussion, and especially Hilal, I must give you a compliment that so far we haven't really discussed anything transactional. be it any jargon, ML, IoT, artificial intelligence, big data, analytics, 3D, nothing. I mean, this is what is expected of a very matured and enduring CIO, that he talks the language of the CEO. And I can very clearly see that, it is, technology is something which will follow. What's your business objective? What is your business imperative? If you understand that, what are the complexities that the atmosphere is actually now, the new complexity that are originating in the current atmosphere. If you are abreast with those challenges, if you are also aware of where to strike gold, how to strike that gold, if you are also aware that, with the changing needs of the customers, how can you both react and be proactive. That's, I think, the game changer, rather than just being transactional with technology. So wonderful viewpoint. I will get back to you, Chulanga. In our discussion, and you briefly have already mentioned those points, but I would now like you to little bit elaborate on the 3-4 points that I captured from your first answer to me. You mentioned about securing the basics. You also mentioned about how important and vital operational technology is for a manufacturer of automotives. You also mentioned about a huge aspect which is ignored by many companies, which is an aspect of data governance. You also spoke about upskilling of the workers at all levels. Now, if these things are to be taken seriously, or if these things need to be materialized in a real world, how should an automobile company go about it, and where do you see the role of the CIO in doing all of these things?
So, most of the times, I've been very vocal about this in the past. The role of the CIO has changed drastically from 10 years ago to 5 years ago, and it'll change more. If you ask me, in the future, a CIO would be somebody who's a business transformer, right? Somebody who transforms business, backed by technology, which is why I refrain from a lot of the times talking about digital transformation, because digital transformation alone will never be a game changer. Because as a CIO, you can expose all the technologies. That's the easiest to do, right? Adoption of these technologies, whether these technologies make sense, is something that you have to understand. And the role of the CIO is going to be, how can he enable business transformation in any organization, right? Then going back to the first point is, if India is to be successful, or if any organization is to be successful, for all the factors that you mentioned, it can't be done just from a siloed vision. Just as the comment that was made by the gentleman earlier, the entire ecosystem has to work, right? You cannot have your suppliers not transforming their business and adopting, and then have yourself transform, because then it's a lopsided situation. They also have to equally grow. So if you're looking at business transformation or digitally transforming, your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers all have to work. Hilal focused about, okay, in India, this is a certain percentage, but what about where they are getting it from, right? And like he rightly said, it's a blessing in disguise, which means now we understand that the localization can't be just on one level, right? If you want the entire ecosystem to work, then you have to localize everything. And COVID showed that, because the entire supply chain came to a disruption, right? If you had localized more, you were able to still put out products into the market, not as efficiently as before, but you were able to do a little bit more, rather than depending. So why I said that is because, again, it's like a seesaw. You have to balance it out properly. And then what do organizations need to do is, going back to the basics is what I mentioned, but also having a clear short-term and long-term strategy. Short-term means, how can you navigate through all the barriers that will come, but also not compromising on your long-term vision, which means that we need to be ready when the world is revolving and then the world is evolving as well. So short-term will be, get the basics right, build the foundation, because if you build something on top of a weak foundation, it will collapse, right? So get your basics right. Look at, for example, not again, I'm really not a big fan of using buzzwords, Yeah? Every time people talk about blockchain and AI, and do not understand that just using these words is not going to be enough, right? You don't have the right infrastructure. You are not focused on your operations. You don't have the right business models, your operating models. And then you plug in all these technologies, it'll never work. It never will work. It has never worked, and it's never going to work, right? You have to have your foundation in terms of what is the strategy you take. Do you go hybrid? Do you go on-prem? Do you go cloud? You should be able to forecast how much data are you talking about. When we look at ourselves, when we look at the trucks, we believe that by 2025, with now AS 140 and trucks being connected, we expect at least a petabyte of data by 2024-25 only from our trucks. Not even considering the fact that we will have our machines connected in the plant and all the systems, etc. So a petabyte of IoT data. How do you handle that? How do you manage that? And what do you do with this data? Right? How do you govern this data is one thing. And then to make sense of all this data. Yeah, how do you use this data, one, to help your customers, which is the person who's buying your products, internally improve your efficiencies, because it's a gradual thing. You will never be able to transform overnight. It'll take some time. So one step at a time. And then also, how, like I said, how do you upskill your people to be able to use this? One department or the IT organizations will never be able to do this alone, which is why I said you need to upskill everybody. We need to be the enablers, and the adoption and the implementation sometimes will have to be self-service in a way. And to set that up, that's why you need to make sure that you lay the foundation and then gradually improve. So for us, at least, I can talk on behalf of Daimler India Commercial Vehicles. We are focusing now, using this time where we have the markets down, to ensure that we stabilize ourselves so that when the markets tick up, we are able to upstream along with the markets and the demands that are there with a long-term vision.
Great. I think the crux that you described is that this is not the time. Most certainly, yeah, the long-term strategy can never stop, but this is not the time for strategizing long-term. I think this is the time to stick to the basics and get those basics right, and also taking the cue from it. And both of you have been endorsing that this is a blessing in disguise, and therefore this is the time to understand where the long-term assault can be, what strategic changes can happen, what strategic investments can happen long-term, be it IT infra upgrades, be it digital supply chain network transformation upgrades, be it application of IoT, automation, whatever it is. Hilal, I have got a very interesting comment from Rajesh Uppal sir. I mean, we all look up to him when it comes to
Yes,
wisdom, when it comes to
the father of IT in the auto industry.
the father of IT in auto industry. I was trying to be very diplomatic. You said it, and kudos to you.
He's respected all across.
Absolutely.
I shouldn't have any hesitation to say that.
So he made a very interesting comment, and I'm glad that he has joined today with us. He said that current digital interface with customer has taken the front seat. Now both customer and other stakeholders expect it and also for own it's more efficient to deliver an effective tool. So what he's trying to say is that it's time to define new digital journey with all partners like finance, like insurance, and the other stakeholders into it. Now that's the kind of vision that one needs to see, one needs to realize. What will it take to realize that vision where you have all the ecosystem partner at the same platform? Now the platform is very important.
So, Rahul, what Mr. Rajesh is saying, I think he has already delivered that to a great extent.
Yes, he has.
It's for people like us to follow. We all are doing our bit, taking the clue to what he has said, and taking the clue from your earlier question, that was the role of CIO. Let me knit both these things together.
Absolutely.
Now, in an industry like us, or in any industry, people are having their specialized function and their specialized job. What is the role of the sales head? He's supposed to sell the car, right? What is the role of the chief procurement officer? He is supposed to procure both direct and indirect parts at the best, possible prices. He has to make a strategy. So what is the role of the manufacturing head? So if I expect that I am the CIO, they will come to me for some of their requirement. Then I will ask them, please give me the logic, the formula, the configuration and the specs, and then I will develop a solution. Then I am doing a gross injustice to them and to the organization. Then if I have to do it, what exactly I need to do? I am typically called an IT person who is trying to justify his organization, his presence in the organization or his existence in the organization. Now, the IT person or the IT head or the team that we are creating, we need to have these people as business advisors. These business advisors should know more about sales or equal about the sales as a typical salesperson, or more about procurement or equal about procurement as a procurement person, or more about manufacturing or equal to manufacturing, a knowledge of the manufacturing person, backed by IT knowledge. Now, the deployment of IT for the sake of IT is never going to solve the problem. You need to understand the business objective. You need to understand the business problem. You need to understand the market dynamics. You need to understand the customer dynamics, right? You need to understand, as Mr. Uppal rightly said, the stakeholder dynamics. And when you understand it, then only you can, try to solve the problem and keep your, organization ahead of the competition or abreast in terms of, the latest, whatever way you can support your organization. So what we have done, I'm just trying to answer that. We have a triangle. We have created an organization wherein IT leader, the business leader, and the industry leader from anywhere, could be anybody, Infosys, IBM, Wipro, TCS of the world. We are constantly reading or understanding the market, the dynamics of the market, the internal factors, the external factors, the compliance factor, the political factors, the competition factors, right? And this all is, having certain implication on us, and this all has certain opportunity for us. Now we have created a small garage model, because if you say that this is the kind of technology, this is your business problem, I want to solve your this business problem, or I want to give you this potential leverage in the market, I want to do this, they will be asking what kind of solution, what is the kind of investment, and then the circle is quite lengthy. So if you are having a small garage concept wherein your business leader, IT leader, and the industry leader is there, and you are having short-term POCs or short-term solutions, and you go with the problem definition, you go with the solution in hand, you talk about the investment, and you say that this is how I am going to deliver the return on investment, or rather I am going to enable you for future. I think things are much faster. The decision making is much simpler. So for a CIO to take care of the organization, to equip the organization, to keep them abreast of the competition, this is the way we have to conduct ourselves, and this is the way our partners have to conduct themselves. Because what is happening in the market, you deal with XYZ partner, they will come to you, have you implemented blockchain? I'm not here to implement blockchain. I mean, that's none of my business. That's a method, don't discuss the method. Have you implemented IoT? I think it has tremendous benefits. Okay, we are not here to understand the benefits. You understand what is my what is the complexity of my business, right? What is my challenge, what is my pain, how I can keep pace with the market and the competition, and what I can deliver. And let's discuss something which is logical, rational, make business sense, not just the technology sense, right? So this is how I look at it.
No, I agree, and I hope that some of these partners are listening, because they showed interest in joining joining this conversation, because they knew that you have been very objectively critical of not applying technology for the sake of it. Chulanga has also said about it, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for any technology vendor to come and sell technology itself. That's I think the most short-sighted approach of selling. If you are not trying to understand what an OEM is trying to achieve, or what an OEM is trying to overcome as a challenge, then I think pushing technology, I think that's not going to make friends. Chulanga, there's a question live from a non-automotive sector friend. He's a great friend. He works from a financial sector company, but his name is Dharmaraj. I call him Dharma.
He's eventually going to finance our car, so welcome to him.
Exactly. So he says auto industry is changing. However, there is a great shift and focus towards electronic vehicles. How do you think this ecosystem will move to the next level? Now see the change in the tone of questions. People are not asking you IT questions because they know that the language that you are speaking is a business language. And I wanted this conversation to be completely non-IT conversation. So Chulanga, I would expect you to answer that, and I will come to Hilal also, because he is into the business of, very soon Honda may produce mass electronic vehicles in India. I will not ask specifically about Honda, but I would certainly ask about his viewpoint, how the industry ecosystem is changing. Carry on, Chulanga.
So I think my personal opinion on this is, from a technology standpoint and from a product perspective, electric vehicles are out there, right? A lot of testing has happened. It's proven, and it will come very soon. However, if the adoption, and I'll take India, for example, I don't think the adoption will fasten until and unless regulations and everybody takes a collective effort to build the infrastructure in the country to adopt electric vehicles. Absolutely. Right? Do we know, and electric vehicles now for a two-wheeler versus a passenger car versus a truck and a bus will be very different.
Very, very different.
Right? The ranges and what you do, right? And also the utilization is also very different. Because if you look at the cars, car as a service is very, very prevalent now. You don't really, if you look at our cars as well, we drive from home to the office, it's parked for at least 8-9 hours, and then we drive back. So do I really need to own a car? And electric definitely makes sense because your car is sitting idle at that point in time. However, if you have a truck that's on the highway, if you do not have the infrastructure to have these charging stations, then electric vehicles will never be successful. You can do hub-to-hub transportation, and that you can even autonomize it, but it'll never be successful. And then comes to build the ecosystem around it, right? Everybody talks about charging stations and battery swapping and all these things. Nobody still talks about how do you recycle these batteries. The amount of threat that it could cause and harm the environment is not even considered yet. Maybe we are not there yet. Now that's a different question. But do we have the right model? Who are the players who are going to enter the market? Are the batteries or the charging stations or the battery swapping going to be a service? Is this the role of the producer or the manufacturer of the vehicle? Is this the government regulations, right? And how do you price these things? So these are all not known. But from a product perspective, I can tell you, if you look at Daimler, we have products. We have the e-counter running. We have the e-Actros. We've done numerous number of testings. And from a product perspective, it's easy. Even for us to bring a vehicle into the Indian market, it will not take us that long. We have the technology. It's proven. It's tested. But we do not have the ecosystem in specific countries to adopt that. So I think the sooner we adopt that, and that's why I always urge the auto sector, along with the partners, have to come together, because we need to define this. It's unknown, right? And in India, I think in the past, we've tried alternate energy resources, and it's not worked in the past. Yeah, so the same way, electric vehicles have the highest potential, but if you don't consider the entire ecosystem, believe me, in India also, or anywhere in the world, it will not be as successful as it should, even though we know that we have to adopt it.
No, I think great response, very realistic response, in fact, because without the infrastructure, all this is going to be staying as like a status symbol. Right now, to me, electrical vehicles, EVs, are a great status symbol, at least in terms of four-wheeler segment. Uh, because people make a statement by owning an EV, saying that we are contributing to environmental issues, but it's a big fact that if we do not have the infrastructure, as you very rightly said about the disposal of batteries, recycling of batteries, I mean, that will create a havoc uh, in already countries where already environmental issues are of a grave concern. You put one more aspect to it, and that too of that magnitude, things will look ugly. Hilal, you have some thoughts on it?
Yes, so when we talk about readiness, readiness from whose perspective? The auto OEM, they are ready. The infrastructure, let me comment about it in the last. The battery manufacturers, be it the local or the imported, that's kind of ready. The engineering is kind of tested, it's kind of ready, and there are lot many players who are already there in the market. If the customer is ready, have we talked about it? I don't know, because and I'm especially talking about India. I think whenever there is a shift, it come with certain kind of additional challenges, certain kind of additional opportunities. It may have certain benefits, it may have certain issues, it may have certain merits for the customer, it may have certain demerits for the customers. We need to really think about it regarding the infrastructure. In a country like India, it's a kind of chicken and egg story. And why it is important to talk about it, Rahul, you must have remembered, and you can recall the introduction of CNG,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So no infrastructure was there in place, and we said, push, let's go, and we have gone, right?
Absolutely.
So I understand that on highways in tier 2, tier 3, India is not that is living in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, right? India is a much bigger country. Tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, much
That's
more
where India
remote.
lives. Right.
That's where the India live. And if we talk about the adoption of electric only after when we have the complete infrastructure in place, I think that is good to think, but practically difficult to have. It means it has to go hand in hand. We need to have some kind of adoption, and the penetration will push the industry, the government, the different bodies to create that kind of infrastructure. And sometimes the solution lies in the problem statement. I understand, if we have to adopt the electric vehicle, we need to have the magnitude of the battery is going to be huge. And Chulanga very rightly touched upon this subject. You can't really ignore this, but I believe that it has to follow at times. I'm not saying that we have to close our eyes and jump into it, but I think the way things are changing, the pace is actually not allowing us to think in a linear fashion, that this will finish first and then we'll have the next step. And this is the beauty and the benefit of being agile. You talked about the long term strategy, the short term strategy. I think, according to me, there is no long term strategy. A long term strategy is a short long term strategy which you keep on refining, aligning over a period of time and making it a long term strategy. So I think it looks good on a piece of paper, but that's, as a matter of fact, changing almost on daily basis. And this is where we can get the benefit of the situation. It is creating not many challenges, but it is creating lot many opportunities for us. And keeping a tap on both of these will really take us into the right direction.
And so if I may contribute to it, what you said, Hilal, in the last, I think the dynamism is such in the world today that there is absolutely zero scope for long term. I mean, not zero, but yeah, a very low scope for long-term strategies because things are changing so fast. You have to re-strategize at very regular intervals. You have to relook at your strategy, keeping pace with the changing needs and demands of a customer. If you don't respond to those, you can keep following your long-term strategies, it's fine, but probably the customer will reject you. That's quite a possible thing.
Absolutely, very well
Rahul,
said.
if you look at it, adding on to what Hilal said, right? I'm also in agreement that it has to go hand in hand. But one thing is, when you dive in too fast, what will happen is you will have situations as we have today. For example, I'll use one example. What was the purpose of BS6? Right? The purpose of BS6 was to somehow reduce the amount of pollutants and emissions that we have, right? Control the emission. My personal belief, just imposing or having BS6 vehicles is not going to bring your pollution down because there's so many BS3s and BS4 vehicles still out there. So if the understanding is that, by introducing just BS6 vehicles, we will bring the pollution levels down, then that's the wrong concept, right? We should also think about what do we do about all the vehicles that are already there. So there needs to be a gradual plan on, yes, ramp it up, that's good. And we will at some point reach that level. But if you don't have policies in place to also take care of what's already existing,
yes,
then it's a one-piece meal approach.
Absolutely.
The same with electric vehicles.
Absolutely, Chulanga.
So,
Couldn't really agree more.
Yeah. So, since we have very less time left, and I do not want to, get consumed and get swayed away by the kind of discussion that we have, we can go on and on and on because it's very interesting for me at least. But a couple of questions that have come, I would like you to answer them. A question says, as we all know, the pandemic has brought about marked changes in consumer habits and behaviors. From my understanding, there is likely to be a shift away from shared mobility options as people prioritize social distancing and personal hygiene. I already see Hilal smiling on it. Do you think this would effectively translate into a higher preference for affordable personal mobility that also could boost sales for auto manufacturers, especially in the entry-level vehicle categories? So I think, Hilal, this question is for you because it's passenger vehicles. Yeah.
Okay. So interesting. We should be thankful to the gentleman.
I need to know the name of the gentleman. I'll ask my colleague to tell me the name.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah. So thankful to him. It has two dimensions. One, the opportunity for the new car sales, and opportunity for the used car sales.
Yes.
And each used car sales is an opportunity for a new car sales.
True.
Right. So we need to really understand the used car market in India. It is very unstructured, very unorganized. In last 5, 7, 10 years, people are trying to organize it. Probably all the auto OEMs, they are having now used car segment. So things are becoming much more organized, transparent. Things are audited now with the with the kind of concern that we are having in our mind related to our safety. People are shifting, or people may shift. I should not say it so definitely. People may shift from shared mobility to personal vehicle. Now there are two type of people. One that who are graduating from two-wheelers to four-wheelers. Of course, they will go for entry-level cars. Or those who are having some entry-level car, they want to go for another car, maybe a used car. So all in all, either it is a graduation from two-wheeler to four-wheeler, or adding another car to your garage, it is going to be a good opportunity for the auto OEMs. How we are actually responding to that requirement, that's really important. One, that we need to be absolutely transparent and mindful about the need of the customer. How we are taking care of the audit of the car in terms of various parameters, how we are ensuring the quality of the car, how we are giving him a transparent deal in terms of the used car. That is number one. Number two, how we are actually trying to tap those customers who are trying to add another car in their garage. So reaching out to the right customers, then having the targeted campaigns, and then ensuring that uh, all those things that he wants can be delivered in the safest possible manner at his doorstep. That is the responsibility of the auto OEM. So both dealing in the used car business or in the new car business, this is how the industry is thinking and taking many initiative, both in terms of process initiative, operation initiative, and the IT initiative, right? So I'm not just talking about the IT initiative. A lot of things are happening today, and there is a good traction that is happening today in the used car business.
Great. Chulanga, one last question before we go off the air. Probably I may have one more very generic question after this one, but this is a very specific question asked by one of the attendees here. The automotive industry typically undergoes a change every a block of 10 years. So what's your views on the same? Do you agree with this, that it undergoes a change in the block of 10 years? Or maybe here I would like to make a very jargonic remark about the industry 4.0. Are the principles of industry 4.0 now coming into absolute use and absolute practice?
I think it's a very valid point, but I think now it will undergo changes much faster. I think it'll be much faster than 10 years. And when it comes to if IoT is going to play a role, yes. And how is it going to play a role? Because we are going to be more efficient, right? The demands are increasing, the complexity is increasing, the number of variants that we have to produce, etc., is increasing. And within the plants, we have to be as lean and as efficient as we can be to enable our workforce to work at max capacity. And therefore, if you look at the quality of products that are coming out now, which is at the shop floor and at the factory level, which is backed by a lot of technology, coming also enabled by IoT, the quality has gradually increased. Yeah, when the quality has gradually increased, what happens is if these changes are happening much faster, we are able to adopt much faster as well. Because before it took us a long time for us to test vehicles, right? For us to do simulation, for us to make sure it went through the right quality checks. It took a long time. Now, even if the adoption in the automotive industry or even automotive norms are changing, not even 10 years, even in 7 or 5 to 7 years, I think the auto industry is capable enough to tackle that because it's backed by, as you rightly said, IoT, and people are smarter, and everything, the ecosystem has improved overall. So I think change will happen faster, but adoption will also happen faster.
Hilal, your views on this?
So I mean, I have nothing significant to add because Chulanga very beautifully summarized it. But in terms of adoption, and in terms of the how to actually articulate it in terms of the readiness from the the industry, I think both is going hand in hand, and the adoption pace is much faster, and the response to the customer demand is also much faster. And that has given some kind of confidence that irrespective of the situation, while we may take a little time to respond, but things are rightly addressed eventually. This is the only thing that I have to add to what Chulanga has said.
Okay, one last question to which I would like you to quickly respond. So whether we like it or not, but organizations do prepare for long term and they think of long term gains by putting in short term efforts and shorter milestones. So what strategic investments could be made for those long term gains? Do you think there will be some robust demand for IT infra upgrades? Do you think there will be a need for digital supply chain transformation? Do you think there will be a uptake in application of IoT and automation and also cognitive technologies in the future?
The question is to me, Rahul.
To both of you. Chulanga, you can go
Okay.
first, and then
Okay. So for me, I have one simple answer, and this is merely my personal opinion. Invest in people. Because everything else you said, if you invest in people, if any company invests in people, everything else becomes very easy, right? And if you do not invest in people, it's going to be very, very tough. And what I mean by investing people is make sure that your people understand how to accept these technologies, adopt these technologies, but bring that entire ecosystem and invest in your people to take time and learn, right? What these technologies can do and how these technologies are enabling the entire ecosystem that we live in to evolve. And that is the only way you can have a solid strategy. We spoke, Hilal mentioned, we spoke about this, that we can't have a long-term strategy. But if you invest in people, your processes will improve, your products will gradually improve as well. Because these people will be able to adopt and embrace all these technologies, digital supply chain, whatever it is. It's all coming to a core of having the right skills, resources, and investing in these people. You do that, I think you are gold in the years to come.
Great. Hilal.
Yeah. So, we have to think of business strategy, of course, for long term. But, I'm not denying it. And the IT long term or short term strategy is nothing but the byproduct of it, right? So if you start thinking from IT, strategy point of view in isolation, that's not really going to help. If I say that I have to implement IoT or I have to have a on-prem, hybrid kind of, solution in place, I need to have AI. What for, right? So, what we can say rather that we have to keep ourselves ready in terms of ability of our people, our processes, our operation, understanding of the market, so that we can take on with whatever challenges we are having in terms of customer behavior changes or customer demands or the industry change or the regulation change or the policy change. I think that goes hand in hand. What is really important, I really like what Chulanga has said, that continuously investing in people is the key. And what kind of investment? Because we keep on at times repeating certain things. I'm talking about in terms of people learning. So learn, unlearn, and relearn is really going to be important, and that's not only for IT, that's for all the business functions, and that is for the industry in general, right? And if we are keeping our eyes open and our ear open, then and you have right people in place, right strategy in place, I think things will definitely fall in place. For some it may take a little longer time, for some it may be some little faster, some may vanish, but I think this is how we are going to respond to the market. Yeah.
No, I agree. I completely agree, and I must thank both of you to be on this show. I compliment myself and my team as well. Primarily, Shipra. Basically, she decided on these two personas because today after a very long time I am not having a very cliched discussion, and the compliment is entirely to both of you who have despite my best efforts to take the discussion towards technology and towards transactions, you have kept it at a very large with a very large horizon. And I think with whatever you said, I could understand that yes, the current scenario might not be the best scenario to describe the auto industry, but going into the future with the learnings of the past, I think the industry is geared up better to serve the customers, to enable its partners and ecosystem, and to see the bright future. With that, I think I thank both of you, and have a very nice weekend. Thanks a
Thank you
lot.
so much, Rahul. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Chulanga. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hilal.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.